So it seems we're numb to the market's movement at this point. After all, November was Bitcoin's worst month since April of 2011. You can either try to fight it by anticipating where we'll go from here, or simply sit back and let crypto winter run its course. And I think in time, we'll look back on these quiet days with a mixture of fondness and disgust. After all, this is the most silent I've seen crypto all year. True, the recent downturns are loud, but overall the chat rooms, the communities, and the overall vigor of the space are a shadow of what they were a year ago. It's a tragedy and a blessing. No longer do I see ICOs plastered on every board and video. Instead, I see calm, rational voices and measured conversation. No longer are we seeing people risk their life savings on a token they heard about 2 hours ago. No longer are we seeing greed grip the space by the neck. Instead, it's more of a quiet optimism that we'll see things turn around. And it's all part of a market cycle. I know the advice that some people don't want to hear is give it a couple years, but it's true. But with a month left in the year, I don't think we're seeing the market quite ready to embrace a new direction. Now, despite this, we know that the recent downturn was not really based on some earth-shattering news. We know that there are many institutional and innovative developments coming in 2019. We know that each day brings us closer to common sense legislation and regulation. We know that throughout much of the past 10 years, the crypto market has been quite immature and defined by speculation over substance. Knowing all that and more, it should be very evident that this is a marathon and not a sprint. You know that innovation takes time. Infrastructure is not built overnight. And disruption often happens in ways we don't expect. The real question that must be asked when opportunity crosses your path is, how bad do you want it? How badly do you want to seize this moment? So let's talk about some of the recent developments we've seen in the space and try to get an understanding of where things are heading into 2019. Welcome to Ready Set Crypto. This is your brain on blockchain. So let's talk about some of the recent news pieces, and I'll give my take on what they mean for the larger space. Now, last week we saw a news piece that, frankly, I'm somewhat uniquely equipped to address, and that is that the state of Ohio is going to accept Bitcoin for paying taxes. The reason I'm somewhat equipped to address this is that currently I am a resident of Ohio, so definitely this news was near and dear to me. So to summate the development, I'll use Anthony Pompliano's take on it, because I think he broke it down pretty well. Here's what you need to know. First, the state treasurer is responsible. Ohio state treasurer conceived the idea and drove it to reality. The hope is that the state can accept Bitcoin for taxes, be seen as innovative and forward-thinking, and recruit more crypto companies and entrepreneurs into the area. Second, Ohio won't hold Bitcoin. The current plan is for businesses to pay their taxes in Bitcoin using BitPay as the payment processor. BitPay will accept Bitcoin on behalf of the state and convert it into USD. Eventually, states will hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets, but not yet. Third, Ohio isn't the first state to try. While Ohio has been the first state to get the legislation passed, other states such as Arizona, Illinois, and Georgia have been trying for some time. In each case, the legislation wasn't passed because the sponsor lawmaker couldn't rally enough votes to support the bill. Now that Ohio has successfully passed this type of bill, I expect more states to follow. And finally, fourth, detractors lost a key argument. Historically, Bitcoin detractors have said the digital asset could not be a currency because you can't pay your taxes with it. That is obviously no longer true. This is another data point that supports the legitimization of the world's most popular decentralized digital currency. So while I respect Pom's take on things, and again, while I am a Ohio resident, I have to say that I don't think this development is the most amazing thing for Bitcoin adoption. I really have my doubts that states will hold Bitcoin in the near future. While Bitcoin is still a volatile asset, I don't think states will want to answer to constituents when the price of Bitcoin fluctuates. And look, don't mistake me, this is not bad. I think this is much more likely paving the way for accepting stablecoins and fiat-pegged coins in the future. And also, while this is probably not going to affect too many people, this is a symbolic victory for Bitcoin. This is a step in the right direction, and I want to applaud the adoption forming around cryptocurrencies in my home state of Ohio. To Pom's fourth point, I think this is a really good counter to the detractors who've often said that Bitcoin will die because it will never be used for taxes. I mean, understand how currencies are classified. You have national currencies, which are issued by the government. You have adopted currencies, like how the USD is used throughout the world. You have parallel currencies, which are used alongside national currencies, so gold, precious metals, etc. You have black market currencies, which are used in black trade. And finally, you have alternative currencies, which are neither minted by the government nor accepted in any official capacity. The anti-Bitcoin and the anti-crypto position has often been that every alternative currency in existence, both past, present, and future, will die out because governments will never accept them, or they won't have adoption. But that is wrong, as we've seen today. Bitcoin is slowly moving from that alternative currency bracket to the parallel currency bracket, on par with gold and silver. Yes, that is still a long way away, I think, but it's an important step. Parallel currencies exist and do not die. And soon, hopefully, Bitcoin will be in that similar category. So again, I really applaud the efforts of the state treasurer of Ohio in pushing the envelope of how we perceive and use alternative currencies, such as Bitcoin. And I think it's significant to see the state treasurer's perception on what this will bring to the state. He said he really wants to plant the flag in Ohio and say that Ohio is a place that is embracing cryptocurrency, embracing blockchain technology, and sending a message to the rest of the country, to software developers, to entrepreneurs and others, that Ohio is open for business. You want to grow a blockchain company, if you want to grow a software development company, do it in the state of Ohio. That's a sentiment I've seen repeated in places like Switzerland and Malta and Singapore. And while it's in isolated places right now, I think that's going to change over the next decade. I think people start to realize that blockchain is a force of innovation, not just for blockchain itself, but you attract people that are working on the cutting edge of digital finance, and that really changes many more things than just cryptocurrencies. I mean, look at what has happened to Silicon Valley over the past half century. By itself, the Bay Area is the world's 19th largest economy, and that's no accident. I think cities and states will start to realize how much opportunity there is by attracting blockchain development and fostering that innovation. So to return to the point of Bitcoin to USD abstraction, recently we saw the news that Bakkt is being delayed to Q1 of 2019. As you've probably heard, Starbucks will be working with Bakkt to accept Bitcoin. As Maria Smith, vice president at Starbucks, said, Starbucks is committed to innovation for expanding payment options for our customers. Yet again, I think this is another case where Bitcoin will probably be accepted but converted to USD. It is not a case for adoption being expanded, but is instead a symbolic milestone for cryptocurrency. But segueing a little bit, I think another topic of adoption making the rounds right now is the sort of common rhetoric that the Bitcoin ETF is something we can count on in Q1 of 2019. Let's make things explicitly clear. No one knows, and at the present, the possibility is still very low. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see it approved simply for the milestone it represents, and because we wouldn't have to play these speculation games every month that I'm kind of tired of doing. At the same time, I've raised concerns in the past with the management of the VanEck SolidX Bitcoin ETF and how it doesn't deserve to hold the market in such a state of wishful thinking. But we're in a fragile state right now, and anything that is proclaimed to be the cure is going to be held up with unrealistic hopes. Here's the thing. We're likely not going to see it anytime soon, and that's okay. The SEC simply isn't going to move forward on it unless something drastic changes. That was on full display when SEC Chairman Jay Clayton made comments at Consensus Invest in New York City. The biggest takeaway is that there won't be an ETF anytime soon if you take him directly at his word. As I've covered many times in the past, it's the third-party custody and market manipulation that stands in the way. Clayton made it very clear that he has a distaste for the current crop of crypto exchanges and the overall market manipulation. Quite simply, the exchanges don't do enough to prevent market manipulation. To quote him, "What investors expect is that trading in the commodity that underlies the ETF makes sense and is free from the risk of manipulation. It's an issue that needs to be addressed before I would be comfortable." And so I think that alone spells it out for us. It's not an issue that will be fixed overnight. That said, Clayton seemed to have favor for the new generation of regulated exchanges making their way to the crypto space. Bakkt, EarthX, and many other institutionally backed and bred exchanges represent the environment he's more comfortable with. But it's a fine balance to strive for. If there's too many regulations put in place, that might distance the retail investors that comprise the majority of crypto investors today. Essentially, there's nothing stopping the crypto community from forking off if they sense a direction they're uncomfortable with or not in agreement with. So there's issues in a multitude of areas. I think to summate the current state of things adequately, we're simply too immature at this time, and the Bitcoin ETF is a bad idea both in principle and in execution. Sure, it's fun to think about, but there are very real concerns and issues that cannot be glossed over simply because we want more volume in this market. That is exactly the kind of thinking that got us in trouble in 2017. And from this point forward, I think we need to support rational and measured initiatives, not whatever brings the most money in the fastest. It's important we don't rush these milestones, because then we'd risk corrupting the soul of the space. I'd rather us put innovation and sustainability first. Short-term thinking is dangerous, and this space is too important to be dictated by it. Now, granted, you might be thinking that I'm trying to push security tokens as sort of the solution to that, and yes, in some way I am, but at the same time, I see cryptocurrency, the crypto market, as its own unique industry that needs separate mechanisms and separate solutions to foster that sustainability and stability. And some people have been talking recently about how China banning SCOs is indication that SCOs are not a direction we should be heading in. So let's quickly address that. They said that tokens that comply to securities law are illegal. It's a very strange stance, but you have to understand that compliance is country specific. A compliant STO in the US does not equate to a compliant STO in China. Given that, I think it makes sense that it would be illegal to be promoted in China. And just because it doesn't exist now does not mean it couldn't exist under current Chinese law. The thing is, they could issue a new law allowing certain STOs subject to certain conditions in the blink of an eye. It's the advantage of a dictatorship government, I guess. But I think really the underlying issue here is that an STO in China would likely mean money going to America, and that is why it's banned. It's a political thing. Capital flight is something they're dead set against. So this was sort of a grab bag of a video. I wanted to make this video to address some of the things I've seen that I feel deserve recognition and conversation, but didn't deserve their own video. I'm going to be trying to put out more videos like this talking about current news, but my intention is certainly not to become a daily news channel because I feel like that is definitely overdone. So definitely let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video and what I could possibly improve to make sure that I'm addressing the things that you want to talk about. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. So thanks again, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.